January 1943. A Soviet sniper sleeps in a dugout beneath Stalingrad's rebel. His Mosin-Nagant rifle is positioned within arm's reach against the frozen earth wall. Before sleeping, he has removed the rifle's bolt assembly and placed it inside his quilted jacket against his skin. The bolt weighs approximately 200 grams and measures 190 millimeters in length. Overnight, temperatures will drop to -35 degrees Celsius. By morning, any moisture present in the rifle's action will have frozen into ice crystals. Any lubricant will have congealed into waxy sludge. The bolt assembly against the sniper's body remains at approximately 36 degrees Celsius throughout the night. When he wakes, he will reinstall the warm bolt into the frozen receiver. The temperature differential will prevent immediate ice formation during the critical first minutes of operation, allowing the weapon to function when fired. This practice was not mentioned in official training manuals. It was not part of Soviet sniper doctrine. It emerged from field experience after snipers discovered that rifles are left assembled in extreme cold often failed to fire on the first trigger pull, a failure that could mean death when engaging time-sensitive targets at dawn. The technique of sleeping with the bolt became widespread among Soviet snipers on the Eastern Front, though for reasons more complex than simple cold weather reliability. Soviet snipers in 1942 and 1943 faced a weapon maintenance problem that was both environmental and tactical. The Mosin-Nagant 1891-30 rifle, standard Soviet sniper weapon, was robust and reliable under normal conditions, but extremely sensitive to cold weather operation. The rifle used a straight pull bolt action, requiring a precise fit between bolt components and receiver raceways. Soviet military lubricants, primarily cosmoline-based preservatives, became viscous below -20 degrees Celsius and essentially solid below -30. This caused bolt cycling to become stiff or impossible. Infantry doctrine addressed this by requiring the complete removal of all lubricants, leaving actions dry. This worked adequately for rapid-fire infantry use, but created problems for snipers who required absolute reliability on the first shot. A sniper engaging a target at 400 meters could not afford a malfunction during bolt operation or trigger pull. The first shot had to fire, cycle, and eject reliably. Any hesitation, any mechanical resistance could alert the target or compromise the shooter's position. The bolt removal technique addressed multiple problems at once. The primary issue was moisture management. Human respiration and perspiration in enclosed positions created humidity that condensed on cold metal surfaces. A rifle stored in a dugout overnight accumulated microscopic moisture deposits that froze into ice crystals as temperatures dropped. These crystals formed between the bolt face and chamber, around the firing pin channel, and within the trigger mechanism. Even minimal ice accumulation could prevent firing pin travel or trigger movement. By keeping the bolt warm, snipers prevented ice formation in the most critical mechanical components. The bolt could be installed quickly in the morning with minimal ice accumulation risk during the brief exposure to cold air while installing it. The secondary consideration was sabotage prevention, though this factor was less significant than commonly believed in post-war accounts. Soviet snipers operated in forward positions, often isolated from friendly units. The possibility of enemy infiltration or partisan betrayal existed, though documented instances of rifles being deliberately sabotaged were rare. Removing the bolt rendered the rifle temporarily inoperable, providing security during sleep when the sniper was vulnerable. However, practical security concerns were limited. A German soldier who infiltrated a position closely enough to access a rifle could simply kill the sleeping sniper rather than sabotage the weapon. The sabotage narrative became prominent in post-war Soviet literature as part of a broader emphasis on vigilance, but field reports suggest cold weather reliability was the primary motivation. The technique required understanding the Mosin-Nagant's mechanical characteristics. The bolt assembly consisted of the bolt body, firing pin, mainspring, ejector, and extractor. These components had to maintain precise dimensional relationships for reliable function. Temperature differentials caused expansion and contraction that could bind the mechanism. By maintaining the bolt at body temperature while the receiver remained at ambient temperature, snipers created a warm component to cold receiver interface that actually facilitated smooth insertion and initial cycling. The warm bolt began cooling immediately upon installation, but the first several cycles occurred before significant temperature equalization. This provided a window of reliable function. After several shots, the bolt reached ambient temperature and cold-related malfunctions could occur. But by then, the sniper had typically completed the engagement or the weapon had warmed from firing. Operational employment of this technique was documented in Soviet sniper materials beginning in late 1942, though implementation varied widely. Some sniper schools taught bolt removal as standard procedure. Others left it to individual preference. The technique spread through informal knowledge transfer between experienced snipers and new ones, rather than through official channels. Veterans returning from Stalingrad described the practice, and students adopted it based on field validation, not doctrinal authority. This pattern was common in Soviet wartime adaptation, where effective field expedients often preceded by formal doctrine. The practice had limitations and risks. Removing the bolt required about 15 seconds, reinstalling it about 10 seconds with cold hands. During those moments, the rifle was inoperable. If the position came under attack at night, the sniper could not return fire immediately. This risk was considered acceptable because Soviet sniper doctrine emphasized remaining undetected and avoiding close-range engagements. A sniper whose position was overrun at night had likely already been compromised and would not survive, regardless of weapon readiness. Bolt removal represented a calculated trade-off, reduced immediate readiness in exchange for guaranteed functionality when deliberately engaging targets at dawn. Comparison with German sniper practices reveals different approaches. German snipers using Karabiner 98K rifles faced similar cold weather issues, but generally did not remove bolts. German lubricants were formulated for lower temperatures, and doctrine emphasized keeping weapons dry. German snipers more commonly stored rifles in insulated wrappings rather than maintaining temperature differentials. Soviet snipers rarely had access to insulated storage and operated in more austere conditions where improvised solutions were necessary. The bolt removal technique was adaptation to constraint as much as engineering logic. Post-war analysis by Western observers identified the practice during examinations in the 1950s. Researchers questioned whether it actually provided a measurable advantage. Controlled testing showed properly cleaned and dry Mosin-Nagant rifles functioned reliably down to -40 degrees Celsius. But those tests occurred under laboratory conditions with meticulous preparation. Field conditions were never ideal. Variable moisture, inconsistent maintenance, equipment degradation, all changed outcomes. The bolt removal technique worked not because it was theoretically required, but because it ensured against reality. The practice declined after the war as sniper rifles evolved. The SVD Dragunov, adopted in 1963, used a gas-operated action, less sensitive to cold. Modern lubricants maintained fluidity at extreme temperatures. Improved equipment and logistics reduced austerity. Sleeping with the bolt became a historical footnote, remembered in memoirs, not doctrine. Some reports suggest limited revival in later cold weather conflicts, but officially, the practice ended. The Soviet sniper in Stalingrad who slept with his rifle bolt against his skin was one of thousands who adopted the practice through experience. Whether it truly improved reliability remains debatable. What is certain is that snipers believed it worked, and belief shaped behavior more powerfully than manuals ever could. The warm bolt against cold skin, the ritual of disassembly at night and reassembly at dawn, became part of sniper culture on the Eastern Front. A technique born of necessity persisted as tradition, not because it was perfect, but because it once worked when it mattered most.